Lapeer County's got about 1,300 miles of roads that are local primary, and then there are some states that we have a maintenance agreement on. So we are really responsible for about 1,500 miles of road here in the county. So a daunting task for us. I've been at the Road Commission for 32 years. Been manager for the last about 17. Been involved in the management side of it as superintendent before that, so a total of about 23 years in the management side of the Road Commission. I've lived in Bayfield Township my entire life, so this was a nice close commute for me to come in and talk. I was at a Tea Party meeting a few years ago. It was about, our road millage, a proposed road millage, obviously. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss that with you guys at that time. I come from just a little history on me. I come from a family that's been in public service for 2 generations anyways. My grandfather was the county sheriff here in the U.S. Marshal years ago, and my father retired from the National Guard as a brigadier general. So we do have public service in our family. So again, it means something to me. It means something to our family. What I'd like to do, if everybody's okay with this, is I would like to talk a little bit about my 19 projects that are currently got barricades throughout the Lapeer County, enclosures and detours and everything else. And then we can I'd like to talk a little bit about some of what our engineering staff is doing, and then get into some proposed 2020 projects, and then we can take questions, and I will do my best to answer them. There may be some engineering questions or some things that I'm not familiar with that you have problems with, but I will take them back to the proper people, the foreman, district foreman, or whatever we need to do, and we'll see if we can get them addressed. So starting with that, in 2019 I've been here, like I said, 32 years, is the largest primary heavy maintenance budget I've ever had. And that is primary construction. We have $11 million budgeted for our primary roads this summer. And we're doing a good job of spending them, as you can tell when you drive around. Emily City Road, which started this week, we're making that final connection from Darrow to county line, to St. Clair County line. And again, there's a map up here with them on it. I apologize, I would have thrown together a PowerPoint presentation, but I was with attorneys all day yesterday and been fighting KWA, so unfortunately I did not have time to do that. But Emily City Road is a crush, shape, and pave. I mean, we're going to go in and grind the road up. We're fixing drainage, we're doing ditching, we've removed trees. And when we get done with this project, we'll have, it's budgeted approximately for $1.67 million. So it's an expensive project. It's about 2.5 miles long. It's an old state trunk line, so it takes a little extra work to get it taken care of with the concrete underneath it. So that one, again, started this week. They started cross tubes and some work at Grand Road intersection where they're going to widen that out for the trucks that come through to Hyphenex. So that's where they're at right now on that project. Second large project is Newark Road. We're actually taking Newark from M24 all the way to Lake Pleasant Road. There's going to be a combination of crush, shape, and pave and overlay. We're going to overlay from 24 to Clark. And then from Clark to Lake Pleasant Road is going to be a crush, shape, and pave. We're going to obliterate the pavement. We're going to widen the road. We're going to improve the ditches, put all new cross tubes in. And there's a big box culvert that's just east of Clark Road. It's a small bridge, but we're going to install a large box culvert, get rid of the guardrails, get it opened up so it's not so narrow right there in that spot. And there'll be some grade correction also in process. Take some of the hills, and we're going to take the hills down and make some fills, so it'll be a lot better road. That particular section is just over $3 million to do that project. So nothing's very cheap. It looks like for us, we're going to start that probably the second week of August, and it's probably going to be completely shut down for 4 weeks. So a big, I mean, obviously the homeowners should get through, but for through traffic will be closed down. They're going to try to shove everything through. They're going to crush, they're going to grade things. The tubes will all be done. They're going to come right back in and pave. Hopefully Our paving company will be caught up by then. Right now, they're struggling because they lost a whole month of paving to the rain. So everything they had scheduled for June is now July, and everything they had scheduled for July is as soon as they get there. So that's kind of where we're at with our paving. Another project that we're doing on the north end is Barnes Road. We're taking Barnes Road from Jefferson to Silverwood, and it's a 2-mile section of road. We're going to crush, shape, pave that. There's some I'm going to say whoop-de-doos. There's some sinkholes in there that we're going to go in and fill with material and stabilize it with an asphalt and then pave it. So hopefully flatten that road out a little bit. Again, that ends up over $1 million. So if you're paying attention, 2 miles is $1 million. So it costs us about $500,000 a mile to crush, shape, and pave road. And I did say we had 1,300 miles. Of the 1,300 miles that we take care of, about 400 of them are paved. So that's why it's such a slow process and a daunting task. That one is going to start the first week of August. Burnside Road, they're working on that now. It's been crushed. It's the section between Jones and Old State. Anybody that plays golf at Washakie, it's right there in that area. And if you ever go through that low spot, it dips, it dives, it goes all over the place. Again, we're going to go in there, add material, which we've added some, and then we're going to go into what they call cement, stabilize it. So we'll put Portland cement in the ground that will bridge that soft spot. And then we'll come in and put gravel over it and pave it. So we're going to raise the road along with stabilize underneath it. So it won't do that tipping and rocking. That mile of road is $499,000. Lum Road is our other project we're doing this year. That's from Harrington to Lake Pleasant. And anybody that's been down Lum Road ever, that's the worst section of Lum Road. I mean, it was rough, it was narrow, it was tree covered. We did go through and clean the trees up, and we widened the road. We're making the lanes wider, and we're making the shoulders wider, move the ditches back. So, I mean, you drive it now, it's open right now to traffic, but it's not paved. It's been ground and grind and just sitting waiting for the pavers to get here. Our other primary project, we have Millville Road. Probably everybody tries to go down Davis Lake to Millville Road. That's kind of a plugged up mess. What we're doing there is Millville is becoming a 3-lane from where we had the previous project at Reaver Road, all the way north to Davis Lake Road. And then Davis Lake Road and Millville are becoming, we're doing an intersection improvement through a CMAQ grant from the state of Michigan. So we're only paying 20% of the cost. So it's a money saver for us, and it will let traffic flow around the intersection better. I mean, I travel that quite a bit, and we're on Davis Lake Road, and you do get backed up there when people are turning, especially, you know, the schools and all the bus traffic that comes out of there when Zimmer gets out. So that will hopefully alleviate a lot of that congestion in there. The other project is Herd Road, down off Pratt to Ritchie Road. We're going to go in and that's an overlay project for us, and we're going to make it a little wider for non-motorized walking shoulder for people to walk with the campground there. Enough said about spending money on walking trails that will pay the fuel tax, but General Squire is another project we're doing this year, and General Squire has some really bad asphalt in it, some bad spots in the road. We're going to go in and take care of a few of those really bad spots, you know, at a tune of about $130,000. So that'll get us probably from here to the wall in a repair spot. So it is rather expensive. So, and that one will happen after Emily City Road is done. Some of the local projects, and again, these projects are funded by the townships. Local roads improvements are typically funded by the townships. The road commission takes care of the grading, it takes care of the winter plowing, and some of the clean out ditches if necessary to get water to flow if it's flooding the road. We take care of that kind of stuff. The township covers the cost of capital improvements to the road. But Oregon Township is doing a crush, shape, and pave on Oregon Road. There's another one that I don't even like to drive down. but they're piecing it together, and I give the township credit. You know, it's very expensive, as we talked, it's $500,000 a mile, and you know, they're doing from Indian to Bassett to connect to where they were. So they're making their way across that expensive road to do. Hadley Township, I believe, is doing a section of Hurd. I'm not absolutely sure. I know we got prices for them, and I haven't seen the project back yet signed, but as an overlay project in conjunction with our Hurd, they were going to tie onto that new stuff. So, but I haven't heard back for sure on that. Lapeer Township is paving subs, Tanglewood and Humford Estates, and then Sharon Drive. They're doing crush, shape, and paves and those. That is a special assessment project, so the homeowners are paying for a portion of that. The townships are paying for a portion of it. So again, those subs for a long time have needed some repair. The last project that I have on my list here is Lakeshore Drive. That was done earlier this year up in Deerfield Township around Barnes Lake. There's a section of it that the township decided that in order to control, you know, the flow into the lake, they paved, put the curb in to control the water the way it runs. I mean, again, Barnes Lake, the houses are built down from the road, between the road and the lake, and we get washouts, we get a lot of water in people's yards, in their garages, everything. So township has stepped up the plate and took a section of it, and the worst section, and spent some money on getting that fixed. So that's it for projects for 19, other than our typical maintenance stuff. You know, we're mowing. Obviously, we're behind in mowing. Probably one of our biggest complaints coming in service requests in the last 2 weeks have been mowing. We had an issue this year. One of our contractors that bid the mowing is not mowing. Decided he's not going to do it. So we've got townships sitting out there that had contracts with him that we're trying to fill the gap. We bought another mower to help with that. So, you know, we're trying to get to them as soon as we can. We've done the states, we've done the primaries. They've been through some of the townships, but I know they're not complete with it. So grading and writing, we've been through most of the townships once. We're finishing up another more this week. I think that's the last one in the Lapeer district. Goodland's the last one in the district. I'm not sure if North Branch is completed or not. I know they were getting close. So maintenance-wise, we're catching up, but you know, it's been one of those years. The grass was really short, and then we got all the rain. Then we got the heat, and it took off. And it's hard to get everything mowed all at once. So kind of like a snowstorm. My engineering department for 19, they're working on. We had a SAW grant called SAW grant. It's a stormwater grant that's offered by the DEQ. It's a 3-year grant. You have 3 years to complete it. We are on a 3rd year. We have to be done in October. It's kind of an interesting project. It was an 80-20 match also. We ended up getting $862,000, something like that is what our budget, what our number was for the SAW grant. Of that, we only paid 20% of the cost. So tremendous, you know, grants. We try to get into it as much as we can. Anything we can get, you know, other state agencies to buy into, we try to do that. The SAW grant goes through and marks. We hired an engineering company. They came in and marked every drainage structure in the county, on our primary and local coasts. They come in and they documented every one of them with a GPS location. They took the grades of them, so we know the inverse of where they're at. They took photographs and video the inside, so we know what the condition is. And then it all goes into a system, the GIS system, which is a computer system mapping that we can put all these on a map. So our foremen now carry tablets, and if they replace a tube, they can hit the tube they're replacing, change the date so we know when it was changed, we know how long it's been in there, they know the grade, they know the location, so everything goes back in the same. My engineering department is working on putting every sign in the county in that same system. And then we're also adding our traffic counts, and we're adding our PASER ratings, which is our paved roads, the condition of the paved roads on a state formatted rating system. And this year we actually took the time to do the gravel so we could get those into this mapping system also. So when we're all done, we're going to have this mapping system with layers, with signs, with culverts, with with pavement markings. I mean, it's going to have everything in it. So it's really going to be an interesting and a useful tool for us to use. The engineering department have been diligently working on that. And what we'd like to do is take that program now, and we can put together a 5-year asset management plan based on what the conditions of the roads are, based on traffic counts, based on, you know, drainage structures. I mean, we can take a good look at stuff and be able to make what I want to call a engineering decision on which roads to do first. So hopefully in 2020 we're going to use it, and we'll have 2020 to 2025 a plan put together. I mean, it's not a rock solid, you know, list, because things change. Winter plays games with us on a regular basis. We spend, you know, half of our budget on winter maintenance. So it's an unpredictable thing. So, you know, that's why we changed our budget to October, so we can front load the unexpected Mother Nature control part of our system, and then we can come back and add a project in the spring if we've got money left. So, proposed projects for 2020. And again, these are proposed, underlying proposed, because again, Mother Nature, and if we had a catastrophic failure out there of something, then we're going to have to take care of that. I mean, that seemed to be quite a common problem for us this spring with these 2-inch rains we were having. We had tubes washed out, and you know, that changes the plans completely. Our first project is Elber Road. This is we're going to take care of I-69 to Davidson Road. My engineer won't tell me the cost yet. He's got somebody putting plans together, because there is a tremendous amount of drainage work that has to happen there. It's very flat. There's nowhere to go with the water. So it's going to take quite a system to get the water moving in that area. So that's the first project. We're going to take care of a section of Oregon Road that's primary. That's the section from city limits to Millville Road. That will be redone next year as part of the project. So
that's a half-mile strip.
Yeah, half to 3/4 mile. Yeah, it goes beyond Suncrest just a little bit. Yeah. That's horrible, horrible. But again, we are able to use urban task force money for that, and we only get urban task force money every 2 years. So, you know, you got to plan around when that funds become available for you. So that's when we proposed, and that's been accepted. So we're going to go with that. We're going to have 2 projects on Bronson Lake Road. We're going to fill in the gap from Millville to
Richardson?
No, Carpenter, because we went from Carpenter to Clink to Gray, and then we're going to go from Gray to Marathon. So it'll be all done all the way through there. So that road will be, and again, that's a reconstruct or crush shape pave. We're going to go back up on Barnes Road again next year. We're going to go from 24 to Silverwood, so we'll be able to get, if something happens on 24 with an accident, we'll have a good route to take detour traffic from 24. We'll take them down Barnes to Jefferson, down to 90. That's some of the problems when we have 24 go down or something. They send some trucks on some roads they have no business being on. So we're trying to put together some detour routes for that. Barnes Road has a culvert on it that doesn't have enough cover. It's a 15-ton limit on it. We're going to go in and fix that issue so that we can get it back up to full loads to help the farmers get stuff out. Barnes Road to 24, that's one of the big complaints we have. We're going to then go Jefferson Road from Barnes to the village limits. So that'll make that connection down to 90 for us. So, and then we're going to go back out to General Squires, start in Elmont Township, and work our way back towards Lake Pleasant Road. That's one of those variable ones. That's one that we may do a mile, or maybe 2 miles. There's a tube in there we have to replace, so we'd like to do that in conjunction with our paving process. So that being said, that's kind of in a nutshell our 19 and 20 plans.
Any questions?
We have questions.
Yes, Ms. Pearson, yeah, there's no mic. From your perspective, we had Representative Shane Hernandez here a few months back, and we were talking about proposed budgets. Now, according to what he was saying, if the governor's budget were to go through with this big gas tax, the bulk of that would not be seen by your local governments. It would go to other areas. What are you hearing on funding for our local roads? Because that's, as I understand it right now, it's kind of equally split between federal, state, and local, roughly a third, I think is what.
Yeah, it's the state MDOT, state routes, and I'm going to talk MTF, the Michigan Transportation Fund. MDOT gets 39.1%. We get 39.1%. Cities and villages get the balance.
Okay.
That's how MTF is set up, and what the governor has proposed, I'm not in agreement with, because it doesn't give us what I feel is our fair share. I think if they're looking to increase road funding, they need to use the same Act 51 formula they've used for years and years and years. It's had 100 amendments, but it's a working, it works. It's proven it works. If they do what the governor has proposed, I think some of these northern counties, and I'm going to say, the northern lower counties are going to be hurting big time because they're not going to get the money. It makes a difference for us. We've calculated some numbers, and it is a much lower number for us. It's lower across the board except for those urban counties. The Waynes, the Oaklands,
Right.
And even Oakland has a little bit of an issue with that process. I personally, and if I can take a minute to talk on that, because
Sure. Oh, please do.
I'm not a fan of it. I really am. I think that it dumps a large quantity of money into the system way too fast. I think we don't have the workforce, the road commission nor the contractors, to do it economically. You're going to spend, prices are going to go way up because, the money's there. It's just, I don't think it's the smart thing to do. Personally, when they started the 2015 gas tax and they were going to introduce that over a 5, I thought, we're never going to get our money. But you know what? That works. Right now, next year, 2021, we'll get all the money we're supposed to with that gas tax. And that's why I can have an $11 million heavy maintenance program right now, because that extra money. That, and they're giving us, thank you, Mr. Howell, for the general fund money that they seem to put towards the roads. I think that's important.
So it's definitely made a difference.
Hands down, it has made a wonderful difference for us. We've put a lot of it into the roads. Is it all in the roads? No, because we've got some equipment that's had to be replaced. It's spending more time in the shop than it is on the road. It doesn't do us any good. So we have made some capital purchases and some improvements, but again, it's the majority of it we're putting on the roads.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That $11 million budget that you're spending this year, how many miles of road is that doing out of the 400?
Well, I can tell you it's about 500,000 miles, so, you're going to get 20 miles at the best, And I don't think we'll quite make that just because of the cost of Emily City Road. That's about $800,000 a mile because it's a composite pavement, it's asphalt over cement. You've got to go in there and take the asphalt and mill it, and then we mix in gravel with it to make a buffer so the concrete cracks don't come right back to the road. That's a very expensive process. But,
Okay.
yes, sir.
I-69 seems to have a strange exit at Wilder Road. Doesn't lead to very far. Is there a plan, a timing to feed Fish Lake Road to Wilder Road?
At this point in time, no. We have discussed it, and I've been there a long time. I was here when they did the public hearings for that road through on Mr. Potter's property, the condemnation process. But funding went proverbially in the toilet at about that time, so everything kind of got shut down. And I have to tell you that my process is, if I can't fix the roads that we have now, why do I want to add more that I don't have? I feel like, our Paisley ratings are pretty low. We need to spend our money fixing what we have before we build new. That's my philosophy. If my board members tell me they want to build that road, we can build it, but I think personally, it's probably going to be between $4 and $5 million to build that section of road, because there's wetlands in there, and we've got to mitigate the wetlands. There's a tremendous amount of excavation work. We have, I'm going to call them old plans for that. We did put together plans at the time. We got to obliterate that Fish Lake Road, Haynes Road intersection. We got to muck that out, got to bring in a lot of material. It's a huge, huge project. If there was funding, grants available for new miles of road, and we could apply for it, I would absolutely do it. But I think taking our transportation dollars and putting them in a new section of road at that kind of cost, I can't make sense of it myself. Like I said, if the board wants me to, they can, but my board currently has never mentioned anything about wanting to make that connection. Yes, sir.
A couple issues. The engineering concept on the paving of the existing roads without expanding the shoulders. Can you elaborate a little bit on your engineering research about if you expand the shoulder like you do on 1024, 3-foot extended shoulder, how that road withstands the pressure and so forth, and why you don't do that to some of the other roads? I'm sure it's money, but
That's the driving factor, the biggest driving factor. But you are right. That's why we took Plum Road and we did push that out, because it used to be a tradition that you were a 10-foot 6-lane. That's not enough for some of the vehicles today. So it was a 10-foot 6-lane, and we would stripe it right on that outside edge.
Right.
Everybody drives on that fog line, and what happens is the edge breaks off. We're trying to get 11-foot 6 lanes. So, and then stripe 1 foot. Even a foot makes a world of difference.
right.
But it is money, because when you start making that wider base, you got to take the ditches out, you got to take the trees out. It does become
Well, that
very
brings me to the second issue. When you do your engineering on these, whatever road, whether it's dirt, or because you're maintaining dirt in addition to the existing paved roads, do you work with the drain commissioner? And is that a cost factor that do they share costs, or how does that work? So when you do your engineering, this is totally your project, and the drain commissioner is somewhat out of the picture?
Well, we have, when a drain crosses a road, we are responsible for that crossing. We 100% are financially responsible for it, not the drain commission. And again, remember, drain commission are only responsible for county drains. All of the other culverts, are bear the burden of the road commission or the townships, or depending on, what road they're located on. But the drain commission drains, we have to, when we go to a project, we're responsible for that structure.
So is that your engineering, your research and everything is done in-house?
Well,
Do you cooperate and get some information?
we try to work with him, because it's an elevation that the tube is set at. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for us to set a tube in at the exact same elevation if Joe at the Drain Commission has planned a clean out and he's going to lower it 6 or 8 inches. Because now we've got a ledge that the water's going to set there. So we do communicate. My county highway engineer does talk to Joe with that. I thought you meant on the financial aspect.
No, you're sharing engineering and research to do the project.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's what we want. I mean, Joe uses actually uses PMJ, I think is the engineering group that he uses. That's the same group that does our hydrology reports. So we even use the same contractor, so that kind of helps too. Because Mike Quain is the guy that he uses. Mike will always step up and say, listen, we're going to do a drain clean out here. We have scheduled maintenance. You may want to, see where your elevation, your tube is.
Now, I have one additional question dealing with the aggregate on the dirt roads. We have a subdivision that's it's debated this for years, but it is my understanding that if you had the wherewithal, and you had limestone grade that you could put on the dirt portion of the road, that would harden to a surface, that would be
It's,
tremendous.
yes, we have, and I was involved getting the program started. We were, if a road gets in the neighborhood of 400 cars a day on traffic counts, a gravel road, it's very difficult to hold up with an aggregate, a natural aggregate. We tend to try to go to a limestone road in that case, and we've started the program, and I don't know, we've got maybe 2 miles of primary road left to limestone. Now, we limestone heavy. We put 5,000 ton to a mile, so you're putting like 8 to 10 inches of limestone on there, but absolutely, it tightens down like, I mean, our graders will go to grade them if they don't wait for rain and they want to go try to cut the road, they'll burn their tires. I mean, there'll be 2 black marks where the tires are spinning because they can't cut it. Yep, no, absolutely, it's a lot more money.
Is that 20, what do they call it, 22A?
Well, they got different products. They have 23A limestone, they have 22A limestone, or they have 21AA.
So
We use 23 and 22 because there's some fines in it to lock it down.
Right, now, if a small neighborhood would come to the road commission, could you give referrals to what companies would do that work?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
You noticed on Daly Road, there's a portion that's experimental,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been there for years and years.
Yep.
I'd like to know the report on how that did.
It's great, but it's very expensive. What's in there is that's a small, unstable soil, a muck soil. What we did in there is we went in and we excavated down to the muck, and then we put in 2 layers of 4-foot by 8-foot blocks of styrofoam. They use this Eagle foam, they use it in a lot of construction when they got buildings that are on poor soil, so we decided to try that in a small area. And if you notice in the wintertime, it doesn't freeze. It's always a different color than the rest of the pavement, but you put the 2 layers down, and then we poured 6.5 or 7 inches of concrete on top of the foam to keep it from floating on water level. Well, it rained right after we poured, like a day or 2, and we went down there, and it was floating because there was no dirt on top of it. It was like a cement barge in the middle of the road, but it has held up. It's held up tremendously. I mean, it's probably the best resolution to the poor soils in the muck and stuff, but the issue is it's extremely expensive.
How long has it been there?
Well, let's see, I took my son down there, and I think he was 3 years old, he's 23. Has it been that long?
That long?
It's probably, yeah, it's probably been, you know, that kind of length, yeah. And it's holding up. I mean, the road doesn't bust up. We've got different experiments. Some of the stuff that's buried in the road out there, we've got cement buried with Z-piling, kind of holding it all together. And there's just trying different things, solutions to see which both is most cost-effective and which best. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Pearson?
Yes, Norm.
My name's Norm Fanson, and we live at Mayfield Road in Mayfield Township. Mayfield Road has become a speedway. We had a neighbor that went and had cards made out. This is not a racetrack or something like that. Please slow down. Some people, it made a difference. Other people, just as bad as it's always been. And a couple of years ago, we had some dirt bikes or these here fast motorcycles. They go down through there. I swear they're going 80 miles an hour. And it is a plotted subdivision. So why did they change the speed limit from either 40 or 45 to 50 miles an hour?
And I guess I wish I could answer that question for you, other than there are constraints. I mean, there's a whole list of warrants that require for signage, speed signage in particular, and state police. I mean, if I don't know if we've been asked by the township to do a speed study on that. The problem becomes when you do a speed study, Norm, if we've done a speed study and they're driving 60 mile an hour, the state police believes that the 85th percentile is the speed, wherever say there's 85% of them driving 60 mile an hour, the state police feel that's the speed limit that ought to be there, because that's where they're comfortable to drive. It's ridiculous, but that's the way it's stated. So I mean, I wish we could help. The speed limit stuff is a real problem. I don't disagree, especially in the plotted sub.
Let me just, if I could elaborate a little bit on this issue. I'm heavily involved in that because I actually use Mayfield Road as a roller.
Mhm.
And I got a ticket there, but before I got the ticket, I contacted the sheriff's department. They said I informed them it was a residential road. Then I contacted your department because Mr. Richard West, who's a resident in that sub, asked me when I was doing something politically to help him petition your department to reduce the speed or so forth, to get some signage. That petition is being circulated, as I understand it, now, to bring back to your board and discuss that issue. And it is a residential neighborhood.
And I don't disagree with that.
And so that petition should be brought to your department momentarily. Mr. West had surgery, cataract surgery today. He couldn't attend here because I told him this was kind of an important meeting for him. But that's an issue that's going to be brought to your attention.
And I will tell you, just so you understand, we will pass that. I would ask that you maybe make a copy of the petition and bring it to Mayfield Township so they have it too, because they petition us for speed studies, and they petition us for that. We're going to turn it over to the state police.
And the state police, I talked to Mr. Nixter, who is the department in the sheriff's department, who seems to patrol that area, and he told me, because he lives on Coulter Road, which is a half-mile strip, he said the speed limit on this half-mile strip is 55 miles an hour, and it makes no sense to him. He says it takes 1 or 2 years to get a hearing on the issue. I thought that was kind of a strange response, and I have an email to that effect. But it is an issue, and Mr. West wants to ride his bicycle on that. People run on that regularly. It's a recreational thing, and that was part of the petition that I had prepared. I will get that to you. So I will.
And that's, I mean, like I said, we just can't lower the speed limit. Because I was explaining to this gentleman back here, the speed limit requires a TCO, which is a traffic control order, in order to enforce it.
But signage, you may be able to put some signage.
What?
Well, I don't know. That's an interesting issue. For example, let me give you this example. Let's pursue this just in Lapeer, the city of Lapeer, in front of Representative Gary Howe's office, there is a designated lane, painted, bicycle lane, okay? Bike lanes, designated throughout the city. Now, who does that? Is that regulated by the city itself?
It's the city.
So the city does that. So Mayfield Township might be the persons, the secondary group to say, well, we would like to have this a designated recreational route.
That's, and to put a bike lane in, absolutely. I mean, there are
Or just some sign to say that it isn't.
You, again, unfortunately, we're going to deal with some legalities there. You just can't put in a recreational, I mean, there are standards for a bike, to designate something as a bike trail or a designated riding area. There are standards for that. I'm not the county highway engineer, but if you'd like to talk to Dustin, call him over there. Maybe you've talked to him. He talks to a lot of people, but you know, he
so is Maurice.
You know, he can give you some of the parameters, because there are you know, things that they have to meet in order to be. It's like the speed limit. If you had 300 residents, and I don't want to go, it's a certain distance and a half a mile, whatever. If you had 300 driveways, there are some parameters set by the number of driveways in a certain distance that they can make it a slower speed limit. But it takes an excess of 300. You know, that's why you see the city streets. You know, it's a very high number.
Yeah.
Or if you have a designated park or school zone, you know, there are those that you can,
See, Mayfield, it stubs up to the school.
Norm, did you get your question answered?
But anyways,
Did you get your question answered?
No, I got more.
okay.
Like I say, speeding is a real problem on Mayfield Road. Man, they just fly down through there. So my wife called the sheriff's department one time to complain about it. And what did they say? You catch them and we'll come and see if we can do something about it. Now, that was,
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, but
yeah,
I can't tell them to go get them either.
they caught me though.
They caught him.
Yeah, they caught
Yeah,
me.
well, that's,
the other.
Not quite fast enough.
The other question I got is, one of the worst intersections, I think, in Lapeer County is Mayfield Road and M24. You pull up there to pull out onto M24, and it's almost impossible, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but to turn your head around to see if there's any traffic coming south on M24. And now you take Peters Road, Ruth Lake Road, they've changed that from merging to pull up there a 90-degree stop.
Mhm.
Why didn't they do that on Mayfield Road? Their
and I
right
don't,
of way goes back towards that house on the point, quite a ways. There's a
yeah, that's a clear vision area in there.
state.
The state owns some of that. And again, you know, that's a good, I'd like to bring that up to my engineer, because we are doing safety projects, but I don't know how that ties into out onto an MDOT road. Norm, I mean, that's the tricky part, because now we got to deal with MDOT, and I don't know how they feel about it. They're going to have to do their studies, but, you know, that's a good idea. I mean, I grew up on Mayfield Road, so I know,
Yeah,
you know, I grew up right across the road from him, so.
One more question.
One more.
Yes, sir.
Maybe the basic problem is Mayfield is smooth. If you could roughen it up, you could slow it down.
Don't do that.
No speed bumps in it.
Are you saying we can grind it, and leave it gravel, and slow
Make
it out?
make it like the other roads. Wow.
I'm glad that was the last question. I gotta be honest with you.
I want to thank Mr. Pearson for attending here today, and I am very glad to hear the projects that you're doing, and I think those are the essential projects in Lapeer, and I see that our road commission is attending. I thank you very, very much. Are you going to stay? Plus, this band is accessible, and we all know where the road commission is, so you can go into the office, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been in there, and thank you very much.
Maurice?
All right, with that, yes, sir.
That's why, if the question comes up again, we should be much more supportive of the local road tax than the tax that's going to send money off to Lansing.
Well, there is an issue, and that, I think we're going to ask Gary to discuss some legislative updates, but there was a proposal just in the last week or 10 days dealing with local taxation, with the local governments, to see whether or not they could generate sufficient funds to do the roads. But with that said, we have two legislative people here. Our representative, Gary Howell, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to him. Nice to see you again, sir.
I do want to use it. Not really, but if you say so. Anyway, good evening, everybody. I think I know most everybody here. As Maurice has indicated, I'm Gary Howell. I'm your local state representative, and I was happy to be here tonight. Tim was great about inviting me each time you have one. Ordinarily, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we're in Lansing in session, so I'm not ordinarily able to attend, but happily, we're not there right now, which is good news for you guys. We're not there right now, so I can attend tonight, so I appreciate the invite. I appreciate you conducting these forums. Probably the key thing to talk about is the road budget, following up on Rick. He made a great presentation. He's very knowledgeable. I enjoyed working with him when I was on the road commission. A lot of the issues he just asked about, I was part of the struggle on some of those issues. But now I'm in a different role in Lansing. And we all know our roads in Michigan are in need of additional help. The question is, what's a reasonable amount of money and what's a reasonable way to do it? Here's what we have done as the House Republicans. You'll read in the paper, I assume, fairly frequently about how Governor Whitmer is chastising us Republicans for, quote, being on vacation when we ought to be finalizing the budget. The truth is, we've already finalized our budget. The House passed a budget in June. That budget does a number of things. One thing is it gives an additional $800 million to roads. Now that's on top of the money that Rick was talking about that the legislature approved several years ago. When you add up the $800 million we're proposing to come up with this year with no tax increase, by the way, in the Republican budget. When you add that $800 million to the money already put forth in the transportation fund, we're going to spend next year about $5 billion. That's what it'll be, $5 billion, if we do nothing else. And Rick is exactly right. We're going to reach a saturation point. If we dump more than $5 billion into these road budgets, who are the contractors going to be? What you're going to do is you're going to make the contractors much richer because there's going to be less competition to get the work done. We will be fortunate to spend that $5 billion effectively. And the road commissions, in my opinion, do the best job in this state of spending their money wisely compared to some of the other entities that get it. The $800 million, by the way, that we are proposing to spend comes solely out of existing tax revenues. No new taxes. And that $800 million, we're proposing that it not be diverted, meaning that if you looked at the chart, which will make you crazy, on the transportation fund and the various diversions that go out of that fund that do not go to roads, money that goes for administration at the state level, money, 1% of the money, believe it or not, goes to bicycle paths. So going to Maurice's point about that ridiculous path in front of my office in Lapeer, which, by the way, I've never seen a bicycle on to this day. They cleverly took a perfectly good 2-lane road and made it a 1-lane road for cars and added this bicycle lane, which goes from nowhere to nowhere. It doesn't go through the pier. It just goes down this little stretch of Clay Street. So if you want to take your bike into town and get on one end of Clay Street, you can ride to the other end of Clay Street. I point that out because such a ridiculous example. Now, why are we taking, I love bicycles, nothing against bicycles, but they don't pay a red cent of gas tax. Who's paying all the money we're talking about? It's the folks, you folks, car registration fees and gas tax, and that money ought to go fixing roads for vehicles that pay the tax. So our $800 million that we're talking about, we're proposing that it totally bypass all of these diversions and instead go directly to the local units. So Lapeer County would actually get 39.1% of that money instead of it being nicked off before it gets down to this level. Now, what am I not going to support? I am not going to support Governor Whitmer's proposal. And she can criticize me and the other Republicans for being on vacation till hell freezes over, and I'm not going to vote for it. And it's pointless for us to be in Lansing and sit around on our thumbs because we are not going to vote for that thing. And she's telling me she's going to veto the budget. That's her choice. She's the governor, she can veto the budget. But she has to take that responsibility. And I'm not about to get blackmailed into bad press in order to vote for this tax increase. And by the way, this tax increase, as Rick has indicated, is unbelievably bad for Lapeer County. Unbelievably bad. 45 cents would give us the highest gas tax in the entire United States. And who would be paying the 45 cents? People like Lapeer County residents. We are commuters, we are farmers, we are business people, we are people that burn a lot of gas by necessity, what we do. We would pay a huge amount of that 45 cents. And we wouldn't get hardly anything out of the return because she is not proposing that it go to the road commissions, the MDOT, and the cities and villages in that 39-39-22 breakdown. Instead, she would divert all that money and it would go to MDOT for state trunk lines, and it would be set up so that the vast bulk of remaining money goes to the metropolitan areas, specifically the Detroit area. for their projects. Now, if you're a little bit cynical, which I tend to be some days about politics, you can count votes on this thing. Who voted for Governor Whitmer? The large metropolitan areas. Who voted against Governor Whitmer? The rural counties like Lapeer. And I'm seeing a pattern, frankly, where a lot of her proposals, whether it's closing the home in Carroll, whether it's the gas tax distribution, whether it's a dozen other things, are skewed to benefit her voters and disadvantage our voters. So we are truly at an impasse on this thing. I don't know what's going to happen. Allegedly, they are negotiating in Lansing. The House is the most conservative body among the House, Senate, and governorship. We have done it. When we passed our budget, said no tax increase whatsoever. I'm a little concerned the Senate leadership is making some noises like they'll be open to some tax increases. But they've got to figure that out before they can even talk to the governor. So I don't know where this thing ends, other than I'm a no vote, and I'm going to stay a no vote, and we'll see what everybody else wants to do. But in the end, you got to fund things. And by the way, our budget is not a ridiculously small budget. I mean, we're budgeting almost $60 billion of your money. You know, the claim that we need more tax revenue, I just find dumbfounding when we've already got $60 billion of your dollars to spend down there on a whole host of things. So, the schools, by the way, in our budget, the Republican budget we passed, we would give each school in Lapeer County another $180 per student of student funding. That's on top of an even larger increase last year. Historically speaking, these are very dramatic increases. Our schools are going to do well under our budget. Now, Whitmer is trying to play one end against the middle on this because she's proposing a $2.5 billion tax increase. That's the 45 cents. Come to $2.5 billion. And unless you read the fine print, you would probably think that goes to roads. But in truth, $600 million of that will get diverted into other spending. And she's trying to lull the education community into supporting her gas tax by telling them that she would divert $600 million or $500 million into the schools. I'm a school guy. I was on school board for years. My son's a teacher. But the truth is they've got enough money to operate on, and we can't afford to have endless tax increases. We've got to spend our money wisely in this state, and we've not always done that. So anyway, that's the big issue. I want to kind of follow up on Rick because he was talking about roads, so I thought I should primarily talk about the road funding issue and where it stands in Lansing. October 1 is the start of the new fiscal year. Hopefully we'll have a budget before that, but it's only going to happen if Whitmer comes down off her high horse and decides not to veto budgets that do not have 45-cent gas tax increases in them. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Bill?
Has anybody on the other side even introduced a bill dealing with her proposed budget, the 45 cents? Has that even been introduced by any? Because last I knew it hadn't.
That's a great relevant question. There's not one Democrat in the House or in the Senate who is foolish enough to stand up and say, I never introduced a bill for a 45-cent gas increase. And yet she's in the paper weekly bashing Republicans because we won't support it. If she's not got one single Democrat willing to do this, that tells you how bad it is. So I'm glad you made that point, Bill. I should have mentioned that. Because we've told them, no problem. You introduce the bill, we'll put it up for a vote. And we'll see what happens. Nobody wants to have their name on that thing.
Any other questions for our representative?
Well, a comment, that 45 cents, so one time in my life, that would buy more than 2 gallons of gas.
Yes.
We remember the day.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And
Wait a second before you leave. I got information that Gary has got new office hours, or he's got an office hour, so you've got the 29th, is it?
yes, I should have announced that. It will be in the newspaper, and it will be an email blast that Maurice is referring to. But I'll have office hours on Monday, the 29th of July. It'll be in the morning in Imlay City and in the afternoon in Lapeer.
Yeah, Hungry Dads.
Yeah, the one in Imlay City is at John's Restaurant on M53. The one in Lapeer is at Hungry Dan's Restaurant, you know where that is, in Genesee Street. So I'd love to have you folks come. I always find interesting that I have a fairly large number of Democrats that show up to explain what I'm doing wrong, and I appreciate that. I'm happy to engage with them and answer their questions, but it'd be nice to have friendly faces there too. So anyway, July 29th.
I will do that.
I don't.
Wait a second, we almost lost our representative.
Yeah. No wonder I didn't like that microphone.
Yeah.
I wasn't planned.
Wasn't it?
We do have one other commission, we have a county commissioner, Brendan Miller.
You're with me?
Unrelated, and
Marathon Township, Deerfield, and Rich Township.
so
Thank you. All right, so a few things I just wanted to touch on real quick, because quite a bit happened in between the meeting I was at and then this meeting today. First off, just on the gas tax, I was talking to someone who I know very well in Lansing. They used to live in LA, and they moved to Lansing to work in the government, so it's always a good thing. Anyhow, they said, well, the one good thing about the gas tax is, if it gets increased, then more people will begin to use public transport. I said, more people begin to use public transport. I can't even convince a food delivery service to deliver to my house, and I pay them to deliver to my house. How am I going to get a bus to pick me up and send me anywhere? So that just shows you the sort of closed-mindedness of some people who work there. Good guy, nice guy, but just in a little bit of a bubble. So a few things I wanted to mention. First off, Trajewski Water Park. Has anyone heard that story? Broke over the last weekend. The water slide shut down, and no, it wasn't because the slide fell into a million pieces, unlike what some people on social media, and even the media would have you believe, because some of the media reports were acting as though this was a catastrophic breakdown and everyone's life was at risk. I will tell you, it wasn't that major, and the slide was already back open. With all that fanfare, it's all taken care of. So, just wanted to address that. I also wanted to address something else, speaking of social media, animal control. I don't know if everyone's seen, there was a big post about 2 weeks ago now that just blasted animal control. Did anyone see that on social media? Probably a couple people did. I just want to make a comment. As a commissioner, I have went to animal control 4 times now. 3 completely unexpected, and 1 time to have a sit-down meeting with Mr. Eady. I can tell you, every time I went randomly, I seen no issues. And if you don't want to take my word for it, the state inspector came into animal control, completely unexpected, came into animal control, found 1 issue, a minor issue, and it was because the front of one of the desks, the formica had chipped. So they had to replace the formica. That is the only issue. So I encourage people, when you see these posts on social media, instead of getting overreactive and just believing everything you see, reach out to me. Reach out to the other commissioners. Reach out to all the elected officials before you just go on a bandwagon. And believe it or not, the person who made that post, I actually had a 45 to 50-minute conversation with that person, and we got some things accomplished. We both agreed, hey, you know, there are some things in animal control that we can address that, say, for instance, Dave just doesn't have time for. I talk to Dave on a regular. He doesn't have time for some of those really harsh administrative duties because there are only 3 people that work in animal control. That includes going out to calls, that includes taking care of animals, that includes everyone who comes in. There just isn't enough time of the day, and there's just not enough employees because the fact is, as I'm sure Rick knows and every county official knows, there just isn't a ton of money in Lapeer County. I mentioned this before. So we talked, we had a really productive conversation about maybe a plan that will help both assist Dave and give the public more availability. The problem is, when people go on social media and jump the gun, it's that all those other commissioners who seen that social media post, they immediately back themselves into a corner because they don't want to be associated with that mess. So any solution that could actually fix a real problem is not going to be fixed now because of social media. So I come out here today just to make mention of that, to tell you animal control is not falling apart, the slide isn't falling apart, the world is not ending. So, and just to push the fact that we need more contact with the representatives. The great thing about our country is everything is elected. You know, from the president down to a county commissioner, down to a road commissioner, all the way down to a county surveyor. We even have library boards in this county. So if you have an issue, ask questions, and then if your questions aren't answered, then you can go to social media and make a point about it. Or you can run against them, or you can make a note in the paper, do all that stuff, but please do your due diligence first, because otherwise it ruins the whole point of our great American experiment called representative democracy. So, I could go on and on about that, but I won't. Thank you guys all for being here today, and thank you for listening. Any questions?
Any questions for the commissioner? All right.
All right, thank you.
One more thing, brief. I just want to mention, this brought to my mind, there's a new program that GLTA has put out, that I don't know if you've read about it in the paper or not, but I think it's beneficial, and I wanted to mention it here also. And it's called the Veterans Wellness Program. What it does is something that we've been trying to get done for a long time, including GLTA, which is give free transportation to veterans with honorable discharges. To any hospital around here, like Saginaw or Ann Arbor, to doctor's appointments, to grocery stores, to job interviews, not just for them, but for their wives also. Even if the veteran husband is deceased, she still has that ability to ride for free on the GLTA.
Yeah, Tim, can you elaborate? Who did they contact? This is the transportation network system, free transportation for veterans and
Right.
disability and their spouses
That's
to
right.
go to the various medical facilities, hospitals, and so forth in the immediate area. Who do they contact?
Well, GLTA is who you have to call. That's what the bus people think that. I'm concerned about it. I'm a veteran, as you all know. I, for the last 2 or 3 years, have been taking my brother to one to Saginaw, the hospital. Okay? They can do that themselves now. It doesn't have to wait till there's a whole bus load. One person, okay, they'll take, and they'll pick up. So it's a great program. It was in the paper, I think, a week ago.
Right, that was implemented June, I think, was it?
At the
Somewhere
end,
in
yeah.
June. Now that's the GLTA, that's the transportation network.
They have 2 new buses, all equipped to handle wheelchairs and that kind of stuff. Not only that, but the drivers are trained and equipped to help get you out of the building and come and pick you back up out of the building. So it's a great program, folks. And if you have any questions or any problems with getting transportation to your doctors or the hospitals or any of that kind of stuff, and you're an honorable discharge veteran, doesn't matter if you live in a box, okay? They're there to help, you know, all you gotta do is call them. And we'll do both. I just wanted to mention that. I think it's a good program, and you ought to be aware of it. Thank you.
I would like to add something to that. We had our veterans person make a presentation last month. If the GLTA has problems, or one of the veterans that you know is having trouble with the GLTA, you can always contact the veterans.
Right.
VA downtown here at the NX building, and they will coordinate the activity too. So there's 2 sources available for veterans who are disabled who need transportation. So thank you, Tim.
But it's all coming through the GLTA.
Right.
They will call, tell them what you need, tell them where you want to go, and when, and they'll set up help.
Okay, with that said, we now come to
Do you have
the
questions?
50,
Oh, no, I was,
we come to the 50-50 drawing.
Big bucks.
Why would, who's, oh boy.
Eight 856-081.
856081.
Norm's got it.
Norm's got it.
Oh, great.
Need something? We don't.
Thank you.
Okay. With that said, and distribution of funds appropriately, here's our summary of upcoming events. I hope these dates are right. August 8th is our next business meeting for the Tea Party. And then our regular meeting, the general meeting, will be August 20th here in Mayfield Township. The business meeting, everybody's invited to attend, that's at the Lapeer Sport. All right, the Carol, the closing prayer.
Please stand with me. I also want to remind you about the heartbeat bill petition. I'll be up here after the meeting. Father, we are grateful for the freedom we have to gather together with like-minded people to educate ourselves and arm us with factual information to help us fight the good fight for our country, for our county, state, and country. Thanks for your hand of protection upon our soldiers throughout the world that are carrying out this fight for freedom on our behalf. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Also like to remind you that the membership brochure that we passed on is the membership goes from June 30th this year to, what I got on?
We good?
Did I change it?
July. We're going to keep it the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyhow, it's on there, and you can sign up on that. You don't have to have $20 a day or anything. Sign up on that. I know you're going to want to do it. And so,
Well, there is the availability, as Bill Quebec is offering to take credit cards if you want to do it that way. That might be more expedient. We do take donations too, and anything that will assist our organization to keep the information flowing to you is appreciated.
have a good night, people. Thank you
Good
very
night.
much. We always enjoy you coming. Appreciate it. Pearson.
You guys.
Fun.